What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to YGOPD, your Yu-Gi-Oh! Professional Development, and today I have something really cool to share with you guys. This is my Magical Musketeer Runick Spright deck, all three together in a nice 40 cards. I wanted to do something a little bit different, and with Musketeer kind of being on the hype train, being bought out a couple days ago, it's starting to cool back down. I wanted to showcase this just because it's something different and neat. I really like it. Of course, you could always just go more pure Runick Spright with hand traps, but it just is something that feels different and is something that's fun to play. Now that we finally have a ban list, people are going to be experimenting and running a lot of weird and different things for a couple weeks, and this might be able to something you can use to sneak a few wins out at your local. So I wanted to go ahead and share it. It is something really fun to play. Again, it's obviously not the most competitive thing in the world because you could just play better cards than Musket, but nonetheless, it is still really fun, and I wanted to go ahead and share that with you all. And of course, before we get started, we'll do a new shout out to all of our subs of the channel. Cakebird, Christopher, Alexis, Brent, Abraham, Gisbert, and Spicy. Thank you all so much for joining the channel. If you like what you see, please be sure to leave a like and drop a subscribe. It really does help. And with all that said, we'll go ahead and hop right into the deck profile. Okay, we'll go ahead and hop into the main deck. I'll do this by package. We will start with the muskets. So 3 cast bar. All the magical musketeers have 2 effects. One is a continuous effect that musket spell traps can be activated from your hand. That's what lets you get away with a lot of stuff and synergizes well with the runic, because their secondary effect is when a card is activated in their column, a spell or trap, you can then trigger their respective effects. Cast bar is a reinforcement of the army for any magical musket card adding from deck to hand. Then we play triple Kid Brave. Kid Brave is kind of like our Flame Buffalo. Once something is added on resolution, it then can discard a magical musket card and then draw 2 cards. To Starfire, I've been back and forth between Starfire and Kid Brave. I prefer the draw just because, again, you want additional cards, kind of like the Eldritch Prosperity for 6 to draw 2, or sorry, Extrav to draw 2. You just want the extra cards here as opposed to a specific search, because you can hit more Runics, you can hit Sprite, and you can just keep playing or add more interruptions rather than a unique special summon. And again, Sprite does lock you, so Starfire is not the greatest, but you can still normal summon any of your names, so it's not too big of a deal. But 2 Starfire, again, it's our E-Telly from the deck, brings out a musket from deck to field in defense position. And then 1 Dock as your recursive piece. This adds a musket from grave to hand. So those are it for your magical musketeer monsters. For these spell traps, which again can all be activated from the hand. Starting off with 2 Desperado. This is just a Trident. It pops a face-up card. Then we play 2 Cross Domination. This is an imperm and also changes something's attack to 0, so it can be used in the damage step, which is really, really good. And then the last 2 that we play are 1 Last Stand and 1 Dancing Needle. Last Stand is our Spell Trap Negate, and Dancing Needle is our DD Crow for up to 3, which makes this really good to contend with stuff like Tier. To be able to have a searchable DD Crow to banish up to 3 things at once is really, really nice. So that is it for the musket package. For the runic piece, we play 3 Runick Tip. This is our reinforcement of the army for anything. All the runics have 2 effects. The first is they can all just special summon a runic from the extra deck to the field. And then their second effect is specific to that card itself. So in this case, this one is a Rhoda for any runic card, and then it will banish the top card of your opponent's deck. Using that secondary effect that's not special summoning something is where these guys shine. They have Imperm, MST, different things like that. And each time they're used, they banish a certain number of cards off your opponent's deck. So you're hitting powerful resources, limiting their combos by getting rid of combo pieces. Certain variants that are pure deck the opponent out, but Tip is the Rhoda. And then we play 3 Freezing Curse. This is our Imperm for the deck. Basically just negates any monster. And then after that, we play 3 Runic Destruction. This is our MST of the deck. And then the last 3 we play is 3 Flashing Fire. This one's okay. Pops a special summon monster, so it's not always great. Can't just shotgun sometimes on their normal summon. Dead against Flunder. It's back and forth, but it's still good. And then the last 3 that we play are 2 Slumber and 1 Fountain. Fountain is the field spell. This can be added from deck or from grave back to hand, so you only play 1. On resolution, if a runic is activated, you then target runic spell traps, or sorry, just quick play spells in your grave, put them on the bottom of your deck, and draw that many. So if you activated 3 while this is on the field, at the end of that activation of the 3rd one, target those 3, put them back, draw 3. Really, really insane. Slumber just protects something from being either destroyed or by battle or card effect the next time it would be, so just once. But it's really good because you have an extra name that you can search to use at any point. Some of these are specific to wanting to your opponent to do stuff, so you can use them. Having a card that you don't have to wait on that and just shotgun, if you want to just go ahead and draw 2 or 3 on your turn before your opponent even gets to start, is really, really important. So that's it for the Runick piece. On to the Spright piece. We play 3 Spright starter, pretty straightforward. And then this is going to start to look a little bit different from here because we want to focus on the Spright spells so we can trigger our magical muskets. We are a little bit more heavier on that. We play 3 Spright jet, and then only 1 Spright blue, 1 Spright red, and 1 Aperia. That's our Spright monster lineup. There's no real reason to play Carrot when we have a searchable spell trap negate through the musket engine that is an Omni, or I should say a counter trap. So it's not really that big of a deal. And spell trap negation really eats through these kinds of boards. Dark Ruler, Droplet, you're not really going to be able to respond anyway. So Carrot's not that great. So I opted for red as our kind of piece of interruption through the monster side of things. And then 1 Aperia is just great. It synergizes with everything else. You're adding off musket cast bar like twice per turn, drawing off Aperia once each turn, drawing off the Runicks every turn. You're just searching and digging so much. And then just the 1 blue to kind of make sure you loop through everything. You can, if you want, up the count of blue to 3, either increase the deck count or cut a few things. But in this build, again, it's more spell focused, so blue is not the center point of this deck. So, and then just the 1 smashers, obviously, to round out the deck at 40. And then onto the extra deck. I will do it just kind of by links and work our way down. We play the 1 access code. This is our big boss monster. Again, you want things that destroy stuff, clean up the board, keep the game state simple. Unchained Abomination would be a really good recommendation here, is to continue to pop cards since it synergizes well with the Runick and with the musket cards. But access code is our piece of choice there. 1 Unicorn, again, something to go into with IP, and again, keeps the game state simple. After that, we're playing Nightmare Cerberus and Nightmare Phoenix as Link 2s. Again, keeping the game state simple, having that spot removal is really important. 1 Dark Charmer. You can put this for a different spot, but I think the most utility out of any Charmer or any spot you're going to put in that way comes here. You can take blue out of your opponent's grave, then you can use blue and trigger it and keep getting advantage for yourself. Take tier stuff, link with it, different things like that. Just a really powerful utility piece. And same thing with IP, just a really good card to end on. The last couple link 1s that we're playing are 1 Gravity Controller and 1 Magical Musketeer Max. These are both really solid. Max has an effect where if it's link summoned, you can add musket spell traps from your deck to your hand up to the number of monsters your opponent controls, or you can special musket monsters from your deck up to the number of spell traps your opponent has. So it kind of does the inverse. But it's really good. You really only need 1 of it. Ideally, if you resolve it once, you should be pretty much in a good position. You don't really need more also because, again, it's not pure musket. You're not playing a ton of targets, so resolving this really once is all you need. Gravity Controller is in here to help synergize with the Runicks. You're playing 2 Huggin. This adds our field spell. 1 Jerry adds field spell back from grave, and then 1 Munin for time. The main reason Gravity Controller is here is just because you have the ability to then summon a card like Huggin, add your field spell, link it off into a card like Gravity Controller, and then you still have a freed up zone to then summon your Magical Musketeer Max, so that way you can still get that off. So that's kind of where that logic is there. And then obviously wrapping up with the bit of the Spright package is we just play 2 Spright Elf and 1 Gigantic Spright. Again, not the focus, it's a small Spright package, but you want to make sure that you can get your initial combo done through Gigantic to get either Hyperia typically, or Blue or Jet, depending on what piece you're missing if you want to prioritize that instead of the draws. And then Elf, obviously 1 as part of the main combo and 1 for some longevity. So that is it for the deck profile. We'll go ahead and do a quick test hand, and then we'll wrap things up. Okay, we'll give this guy a quick shuffle. It might take just a little bit, just solely because, again, this was in order. We should really power shuffle it, but I'm going to see if I can get away with just a few riffle shuffles here to get things randomized enough. Hate to draw 2 or 3 of something, but obviously that's the problem you have right after doing a deck profile. You really got to make sure things are randomized well. So we'll give this kind of a wrap up here, give this a quick cut, and then we'll see what we are working with here. So we have a Freezing Curse, Hyperia, Jet, Flashing Fire, and Caspar. This is actually good. This is probably more than I could ask for here. So we're going to do something a little bit different, but it will still work nonetheless. So first things first, I'm going to normal the Caspar. Ideally, you'll want it to be in one of the zones that Elf will eventually point to. I know there's no zones here. And then you can activate whichever one of these two Runics here. It doesn't matter because you'll ideally recur it back the following turn. I'm going to value the imperm a little bit more, so I'm going to save that. We're going to activate our Flashing Fire. To get our Huggin to the field, Huggin's effect will then trigger, and we will discard a card. In this case, I am going to discard the Hyperia, trying to keep things a little bit clean up here as we're playing upside down. And then we'll go ahead and add the Runick Fountain from our deck to our hand. Go ahead and find that right there. We'll go ahead and activate Fountain over here. And then we've discarded the Hyperia. And then from here, what we can do is we can go ahead and special Jet. Our Flashing Fire is engraved because we used it. Jet's effect will then trigger. And then here I'm going to go ahead and get a starter from deck to hand. And now, if you wanted to trigger Caspar earlier, you could make sure Flashing Fire is in its column, or you could do it whenever. There's no real reason not to do it, but I'm going to save it here just to demonstrate something, is I'm going to go ahead and Sprite Starter. So it just depends, right? Because if you have Caspar and Huggin on your first play, you could chain 1, chain 2, or chain 1, chain 2. Whatever you want to prioritize chain blocking, that's the way you want to go. So I actually want to prioritize chain blocking. I'm going to chain block Caspar in this place. I actually kind of want to prioritize that. But even then, before we, before we even do the starter, just since I've mentioned chain blocking, the other thing you want to make sure you do is just play around Nibiru. So we're going to go ahead and overlay this into a Gigantic as our fourth summon here. And then Gigantic can detach Jet to go ahead and get our fifth piece, which is going to be a blue. And then blue effect will activate. And I'm just going to go ahead and get another Jet for the follow-up. And then now what we are going to do here is now we can go ahead and starter in the Caspar column. And we will special from our deck a copy of Red. Of course, again, like I said, depending on how you want to do this, you can chain block whatever, whenever. I'm kind of loosely caring about zones right now because things are upside down a little bit. This should really kind of be in the farmost zone, but you'll kind of understand as we go. But nevertheless, we get out Red, and then we can trigger Caspar to add whatever we want. Since we have a monster negate on board, I'm actually going to go ahead and add a spell trap negate so we insulate ourselves from a card like Dark Ruler No More. And because it's a counter trap, ideally our opponent's not going to be able to deal with that, especially now that Red Reboot is gone and out of the format. So from here, what we can do is we can link these two away. And again, like I said, this is why your zones matter. This is a very easy example of what not to do because Elf is not going to protect either of these. So in a perfect world, you would set up your zones here so that they're protecting one another. But I'm going to keep it the way it is here just for the sake of example and because I'm playing upside down. But we'll go ahead and summon the Elf, and then we'll go ahead and use Elf's effect to bring back Hyperia. And Hyperia will let us draw another card. We hit another Flashing Fire, which is whatever. And then from here, we can go ahead. If you want to leave the red on board, you can. I'm actually just going to go ahead and link it away into an IP Masquerena. And now I'm actually fine with how this is because we still have a monster negate here, and then we're passing, and this is our hand. It does not look like a ton, but we'll kind of showcase what that looks like on our opponent's turn. So our opponent goes, and we're just going to pretend and say that they want to Dark Ruler us right off the bat. We're going to go ahead and Last Stand to negate that Dark Ruler, and then we can go ahead and trigger the Caspar effect, and we can add anything here. We could add an Imperm, we could add a Pop. What I'm actually going to do is, let's assume we're playing the worst deck in the format and we just got lucky and won the die roll with our deck. We're going to add Dancing Needle. So that's a DD Crow for up to 3. And then on resolution, what we can do is we can go ahead and trigger our Elf to get Hyperia back from grave to draw another card. We hit another Caspar. Not great, but again, it is fuel for the Unicorn discard. So from there, if we really wanted, we can always IP these two away and go ahead and make a Unicorn as the game state continues, spinning back something like Kaleido Heart or Kit Kalos, anything like that. So we could discard that. So that's another piece of interruption. And then from there, we obviously have Dancing Needle as a piece of interruption. And then we have a pop and an imperm here. So since we already have, let's see, I believe one Runick Engrave already, we can just pretend that we go ahead and use both of those to slow our opponent down. And then we can trigger a card like Fountain on our field zone to return all 3 of these to the bottom of the deck. And then we get to draw 3 more. So we'll go ahead and put those on the bottom. And then we hit 3. So we hit the MST again, and then we hit Cross Domination, which is an imperm making something 0. So the thing about this deck that's really cool is it just continues to snowball and get out of control. And then obviously if things do go back to your turn, you have more follow-up, more ability to push. You still have Jet left to get smashers. You can link into access code. You have you know, another imperm, essentially another MST. You can have at least another draw off of Fountain by putting one of these back, another draw by getting Hyperia and putting that on the board. So the deck really just continues to stay out of control and snowballs like crazy. So again, that's the deck. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you liked it. See something different and neat and fun to play. If you're kind of that person that only has one blue lying around and wants something random to do with that, you know, and you have all this other stuff, go for it. It's just something unique and different. So with all that said, I will see you all in the next one. Later.